Alright, so we'll finish here by sort of resetting things, and oftentimes you've got a number of layers up and you're zoomed in somewhere. If you want to just sort of go back and reset everything, it's easiest to just simply refresh the browser, and that will take you back to having no layers selected and the extent that is your default, and more on that in a little bit. So it's often said that maps tell stories. We think that one of the real powers of the SPARC index instance, which allows GIS stewards to publish a lot of data that wouldn't otherwise have been available to stakeholders, is that those stakeholders, even those that are non-technical, non-GIS users, would have in their power the ability to maybe discover some stories that haven't been told yet, or to discover relationships that exist out there between different kinds of data. And so let's take a look as you're browsing around, just as an example. If you were looking in transportation and in auto, and you see a particular map that is the percent of multifamily households in each of these transportation analysis zones, or TAZs, that have 0 cars, and you can see that the greatest is not massive, but there are a series of polygons here that have 14%. So greater than 14%, something more than 14% of the multifamily households inside of these TAZs have 0 cars. And that maybe makes you think that these would be ideally suited for transit service. And so we look around and we see a transit node, and we expand that and expand bus stops. And so we can see the existing transit that's in here, and it makes for an interesting story about the relationship between multifamily households with 0 cars and transit service. So if we drill down into one of these areas, say for instance this one, we can see that there are transit that runs on the sort of outskirts, but there's a number of different polygons inside of here that fall into this highest quartile. Now this is a situation where you'd kind of like to see what's going on underneath this polygon, and so the way to do that is to select it, and then down in the bottom left there's an opacity slider, and that will adjust the transparency. And so you're able to, I mean, of course you could just turn it on or off, right? But this is kind of neat because it allows you to kind of see different color ratios, but also have them be transparent, so as to see what's going on underneath. So these appear in this artificial scenario that's being constructed, that there is indeed development going on here, and it is in an area that has a high percentage of multifamily units that have 0 cars. And so the idea might be that this would be an area to grow transit, because it's more likely to be used. So how do you relate this? Because it's one thing to come to this conclusion, and then it's another to share this. And so we're going to, what SPARC Index also gives you the ability to do is to share this. And so we start by saving the extent we're at, because you want to return here. You're thinking about this area. Maybe you need to log out for the day and come back tomorrow. You can click on Save Extent up at the top of the TOC, and then anytime you come back here, and I just refresh the browser window, and you can see it's taken me straight back to this area right off the bat. However, it hasn't preserved the MF with 0 cars layer and the transit stops layer, both of which I've just turned back on. And you can actually retain those as well, and you can do it simply by right-clicking on them and saying add this node to my map. And you can do this also to the bus stops add node to my map. And what that now does is, when you refresh the browser, every time you come into the map, it will have you set up with this information available, sort of readily available. And in addition to that, you have the ability to share this information. So you can copy and paste this link, which was available from the share button up here. And when you paste this link, it takes you here. This is your default view is, but of course you can actually share this with other users. And so when you share things like this, it becomes available to other users either through this menu or by clicking the link that you send to them via email. And that's how you can actually discover relationships or stories in the maps and share them with other users. Now, if you end up navigating to some other extent, or maybe back to the full extent, at any time you can click on your My Extent button or the username that you have, and that will return you back to your location. You can also, if you ever wanted to reset that, is simply go back to full extent and click on Save Extent there, and that puts you back to having as your default the overall maximum geographic boundary extent. To remove things from your map, you simply right-click them and say Remove Node from My Map, and at that point, the next time you enter into the map viewer inside of a SPARC index instance, you're sort of back to a basic map, as it were. Well, thanks for joining me for this in one of the series of our Criterion Planners instructional videos. See you soon.